Hello, everybody. Today, I want to talk to you about how you can install a sensor in Argo, basically an Argo project in GitOps. I struggled with this for a few days to find the solution for the problem that I was having. That's why I want to share this with you. So, the goal is to actually install a webhook sensor. What a sensor is in Argo is, let's say you have an event source that triggers something, right? But just because you define a source, it doesn't mean it's going to grab the events that come in, for which you need a sensor. The sensor will constantly look for events that are happening at the source that you've defined. That sensor will grab the events and put it in the event bus. That's the job of a sensor. But it turns out this sensor is part of an alpha API. It's not a general release, part of general release in the GKE cluster. So the error I was getting is this, and I even put it this on Stack Overflow, but didn't get a good answer. So I had to find my own solution. The error you're going to get is unable to recognize blah 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 blah, no match for kind sensor. Now, the the background to that is this is the YAML that we're trying to install here. Okay, so if I do a curl, you will see that at the top, uh, the kind of resources sensor, and that is not recognized because the general cluster that you create doesn't recognize the alpha features of GKE. So to do this, let's go back to our requirements. To do this, you first have to create an alpha cluster. What is that? I will give you the link in the description below. In here, you will see in Google, say this page shows how to create a Google GK cluster, alpha cluster, which enables the alpha features of GKE. That's what you need. That's one of the things that you need. It wasn't actually enough. So first of all, we create a cluster that is alpha. So let's look at that for a second. So I happen to have, I already created that because it takes about 10 minutes to create it. So I didn't want to create that live. But if you follow the instruction there, it's simple enough. Basically, you have to add, the trick here is basically to add these 4 or 5 options when you create the cluster. All right. You're gonna need a cluster name and region anyway, but these these 3 features is what you need to create an alpha enabled cluster. So I've already done that. So if I do kget nodes, I will see that I'm connected to a cluster. Now, going back to the requirements, I already did that. Now, I already showed you the YAML that has what we need to do, what we're trying to install here. We install a sensor with particular parameters. So we do that, but even after doing that, we will see that it doesn't really work. So let's look at the requirements again. So if I run, first of all, let's create a namespace. Events, we will need that even to try. So k create that. Okay, I mistyped. K create namespace argo-events. So namespace is created. Now if I try to do this, it will still fail. Okay, unable to recognize blah blah blah, no match for kind. Turns out you have to do one more thing, which is to install Argo event. That is the requirement. So we will install Argo events. On this cluster, you see a bunch of CRDs got created. That's all good. Now if I do this, actually I already have it in history, so I can just run that. So now if I do that, the sensor will actually get created. You can ignore the warnings that are not relevant. It did get created. We know it got created is because we can just do find the sensor. You see that the sensor kind is now recognized. It doesn't complain anymore. And there's only one in the namespace argo events, and the name of this is webhook. And you know that because in the YAML, the name was webhook. Going back to the requirements, I want to verify one more thing.